Hello and welcome to the next episode of Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I am a digital marketer in life sciences. So, with that, let me just bring in my guest here. So, Paul Neyman is the co-founder and chief revenue officer of Areti Health, a Silicon Valley-based company transforming clinical trials through AI-driven patient engagement. So, with that, welcome, Paul. It's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Don. Super excited to be here today.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. It's funny because I was thinking back through this. I think we've had maybe three different companies with different sort of approaches with regards to clinical trials. So it'll be really interesting to dive a little deeper in terms of like the differentiating factors and things like that. But before we get to that, can you just tell us just a little bit about your background and how you transitioned from software engineering to your current role in the healthcare technology industry?
Yeah, that's a pretty unusual transfer for most, right? I did indeed graduate as with a degree in computer science from UC Berkeley and started working in the Valley. First company was large, and then I realized, look, startups is where it's at, and this is what I started doing, right? Various exits, large and small. And one of the companies that I joined after about 8 years of engineering, I realized I really wanted to talk to people and solve their problems rather than code up yet another solution that I've done like maybe 10 times by now, right? I understand what needs to be done. I just don't have the energy to code up the same wrapper yet again. And so I transitioned into sales engineering and truly enjoyed it for about a year and a half or so because I could code up quick changes on the fly, custom prototypes, and then give it off to engineering and say, okay, now you productize it, right? We seal the deal, which is what excites me, right? I could understand the customer problem, seal the deal, and then the engineering can make it stable. Fantastic. And after a while, my VP of sales and my mentor, and to this day, one of my best friends, really said, Paul, what I see in you, and this was a call on a day after Christmas morning, and this was we were in a hotel in Reno, 8 a.m. He calls me and says, Paul, I have two options for you. You could stay a pre-sales engineer for the rest of your life, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or you could become a sales executive, and it's one of those mafia things. It's not. There's really not another option to answer there. And said, well, I'm sure, let's do it. And it turned out to be my true calling. All of a sudden, my sales career just started taking off. I started hitting the quota and growing from a exec to a senior account executive to strategic regional director, director of sales for North America and Asia Pacific. And this is when that startup got acquired by BlackBerry. And that truly put me through a meat grinder, if you will, of high pressure sales where you need to deliver and you forecast and you commit to it, really trial by fire. And after my golden handcuffs expired, I got recruited by a direct competitor to build the same thing that BlackBerry was doing, pivot from hardware to software and build it from the ground up. And I thought this was a fantastic opportunity of a lifetime to come in where there's nothing, right? You're absolutely by yourself and build that and scale it as fast as you can. And so that got scaled up from zero and no sales team to about 23 people and 15 million revenue, SaaS revenue, ARR in 3 years or less. Now, at that point, I started talking to my friend who I knew since we were students. When I came to the United States, I was a student at Berkeley. He was a student at Stanford. Ilya, my founder, and we kind of caught up and said, "Well, what are you working on?" He said, "Look, I was playing with early version of Chat GPT. I got access through Y Combinator. He's a Y Combinator alum, and it's amazing. And I've been playing with the idea of clinical trials and kind of following up with the patients because the model can truly reason and talk. And I think there's something here. I got an early traction. I don't have the cycles to chase people, right? and do it more. Like, yeah, of course, this is what salespeople do, right? You need a sales motion. I'm your guy. And this is how we started. The first prototype, we launched our first customer in January 2024. And then they introduced us to a couple more. I was like, okay, this works. This is truly helping not only patients, it helps operationally. It is making a positive impact. Let's go out to World Vaccine Congress. And we went out there, got an amazing reception from pretty much anyone that we talked to. Um, and this is where we realized, okay, this is for real, and we should go public. I mean, as an publicly visible company format, and let's start doing it seriously. And here we are.
Oh, very good. Yeah, from an offer that you couldn't refuse all the way to
That's right.
a sales journey that that leads you, back through startups and building. I
Yes.
feel like there's this big sort of transition that a lot of people don't understand, though. I mean, obviously, larger organizations have a ton of infrastructure, as you described. There's a lot of different things that that you have to figure out how to operate through, which kind of leads me to really my next question, which is really what are those key experiences that you had from your early career that really shaped your approach to sales and technology? But also, it seems to me like you could weave in this whole idea behind large organization versus small as well.
Oh, absolutely. What? I'm not a complete stranger to healthcare. While at one of the companies, I actually established a healthcare. And the company has been trying for a while and brought in a couple of healthcare execs and tried to sell the software for straightforward, kind of just really straightforward application. This is what the software does, and didn't have a lot of success. And uh, one of the friends that I made there, an IT guy from Kaiser Permanente, we started talking, and he said, "Paul, what if, like, just hear me out? What if we could reapply this for this particular fashion?" So you're a genius. Let's give it a shot. And all of a sudden, it took off. We started closing department after department after department, and then we scaled up to areas, and then just the basically licensed the entire Kaiser Permanente system. Now, at that time, we were competing with an existing product there that could have been also repurposed, but they were just a little too slow. Right? It got to the point where I got a call from the not the CIO, the CIO of Kaiser Permanente. He said, "Paul, you're such a pain in my neck. Like I already paid for this software, but I can't give it away for free. Like my people don't want to use it." So they purchase out of their own departmental budgets stuff that we already have, but from you, right? I got to do an RFP, right? So you kind of force the issue, and so you start this guerrilla tactic. You find your champions, and you got to understand what the pain point is. Um, yes, if your software is designed to do something, and you're kind of talking past them, they'll say, "Yeah, that's interesting," but thank you very much, but no. Right. So one of the lessons is absolutely you have to have sales discipline and champion sales and all the other techniques, and you could read a ton of books. But really, one of the most important lessons is listen to your customer. What is it they're trying to solve, and how they're going about it? What are their operations? I think that's invaluable. The other life lesson that I learned, and I think it will apply really in any career, not just sales, really any career. Um, my mentor, VP of Sales, and I, we were doing a deal with Morgan Stanley. So we flew to New York, and you walk up to this building, you look at everything. Of course, we're in a suit and tie. This is where the big boys play, right? And I was stressing out a little bit. This is an environment where you're sitting across a VP of operations at Morgan Stanley, and every minute is probably worth more than he makes every minute that he spends on me. He makes probably more than I will in this
Mm,
year or so. And Leo looked at me and said, "Whatever you do, right, whatever the outcome of this, you got to have fun, right? If you cannot have fun while you're doing your job, it's not worth it." And this is the advice that I took to heart. And whenever we get into down situations, and I got to cheer up the team. And there's been plenty of issues where the customers don't like your software, or they call you up on the carpet. And it's like, why are you doing this? Is
mm.
there usefulness to it? Are you having fun yourself? And if that is the case, then it's worth it. Otherwise, bail out, go do something else. Those are really my two key philosophies that I take.
Yeah, I kind of come back though too to your problem solving approach, right? I mean, obviously you have the know-how to do a lot of the technical aspects. You also, have the ability to observe people and things like that. It sort of, just reminds me overall that the best salespeople are really problem solvers. Um, And I didn't start out believing this, but having to do more sales myself, now, it's one of those things where you just, after living it, it's like, well, I can understand exactly now what people mean whenever they say that you have to be both a problem solver but also understand how to work with people.
Absolutely. And Don, you've probably seen this in your sales career so many times. Someone gets on stage and they go through the slides like a train on rail, right? And nobody in the audience cares. But they're not flexible enough, and sometimes they get stopped. Like, what if? Hang on, let me finish with my deck, and then they just keep on going. That's not the customer's not interested. You got to present something. Do your discovery. Why are we in the room? We're in the room because clearly there's something interesting about us that you, Mr. Customer, need. All right, let's figure out how can we solve that. I think that's absolutely great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how does your personal mission align with what the company's goals are at Areti Health?
Yeah, you know what? I think that whatever you do, it has to be, Google used to have this famous do no evil. I'd rather turn this around and say do good, right? And unfortunately, they got rid of that too once they got too corporate and new CFO came in and everything, and shareholders are demanding. Really, if your work brings positive impact, whether it's accelerating clinical trial recruitment or it's delivering drugs or just bring better future for the people, it's worth it. That's probably the main criteria how I view what is this job about? Am I going to be in the evil corporation designing weapons, or am I going to try to make people's life better? And I think that's it. And it could be just meaningless. Sometimes it's like, hey, let's add another app to order pizza while riding Uber, right? Which is kind of neither here nor there. You probably could do this, but life is short. Let's try to find something that is that is actually useful for everyone.
Yeah, also true. So, how does Areti's platform integrate with systems like EMR, CTMS, and CRM to streamline recruitment workflows?
Yeah, you know what? We've been looking what is really the bottleneck with patient recruitment, and a lot of times it is the site's response. You probably hear this anecdotally all the time. People will say, "Look, I wanted to participate in a clinical trial, and I filled out the form, and nobody got back to me for weeks or months." Not unusual. Like my friends are like, "Paul, you're in clinical trials. How do I get into clinical trial?" There's clearly a gap in awareness about what's available and how to get it. People just don't know what the process is, or would love to participate, but just don't know where to even start. Um, and this is one of the things that we're trying to solve. First, we examine. So let's say we're working with a site. We examine the EMR and we say, uh, Mr. Dr. Jones, how about you do a search on the primary indicator? How many, let's say, CKD patients you have, or high blood pressure, or what else, or what have you? And doctors are not necessarily great at EMR mining, and they got better things to do. So why don't we optimize this? And Dr. Jones says, okay, here we go. Let me run just quick search. Oh, about 500 people, but I don't really know how many are truly eligible. So, okay, fantastic. Let us take this list. We need just demographic data from you. And then we've brokered access to National Health Information Exchange, which is a fantastic thing. It now exists. And so we make requests on behalf of Dr. Jones to figure out, um, can we get a full chart, please? And those full charts come back, and now we can apply the power of AI. The power of AI is really machine learning, its ability to detect patterns, its ability to analyze unstructured data and make sense of it. And so that unstructured data, we look at lab results, we look at prescriptions, we look at notes, we look at attachments, we look at image scans, handwritten notes, and rank the matches and say, okay, out of the 500 people that you've identified, let's say 200 are fantastic match, like total, let's go after them. There's another maybe 100 that are decent, but probably some information is missing, but we'll get to it. Don't bother with the rest, right? Why should we annoy people reaching out to them if they're clearly ineligible? It wastes everybody's time, and the likelihood they will participate again will absolutely decrease. And so that's the first step. And that the second step, we perform the agentic outreach. Again, one of the biggest problems is that how many hours per week does a typical CRC have to do cold calling? Or, um, what's who likes to do cold calling? Like, raise your hands. Yeah, I don't
Right.
see any, right? And so this is where the generative AI is again fantastic. We now have amazing capabilities to emulate human voice with minimal delays. We're empathetic, we're infinitely scalable. We're not on the clock where I have to, I don't have time to listen to your story. I'm sorry, I got to go to the next appointment. I have 5 minutes. No, let's stay with the patient for as long as it takes. Answer their questions if they have any. If they're on the fence, we can educate them. We can be empathetic, pre-screen them. And now that we know your medical history, there's no need to ask you 20, 30 questions. We already know your medical history. Let's focus
Mm.
on those that we would call attitudinal. Have you smoked in the past 2 weeks? Are you planning any major surgery in the next 3 months? Something that you would not see from a record. All right. Oh, you're eligible. Let's schedule in. Let's integrate with the site technology. So we integrate with all major CTMS systems. We'll pull real-time calendar availability. Scheduling is a huge pain for everyone, right? So we pull real-time availability from the calendar. Oh, please choose yourself, Mr. Customer, Mr. Patient. When would you like to come in? Let's say Friday at 2 p.m. Done. Your appointment is scheduled. We send you confirmations. The site gets confirmations. Everything that transpired during the visit, during the pre-screen, the logs, any questions they may have, any answers they may have changed, we'll raise the flags there. We're not quite sure this is a fantastic candidate because they were confused. They asked questions back, or maybe they changed the answers. All that information goes to the CRC. And so for the site, everything happens more or less what I would call automatically. The patients are created in CTMS, the appointments are created, and so the CRCs continue to use the system they're used to. They operate in the environment that they enjoy and like, and we speed up their operations. So it's a tremendous operational efficiency for the sites. We lift the burden of manual chart review and manual outreach. It accelerates the timelines for the CROs, and of course for the sponsors, it is a huge benefit because typically patient recruitment is like 1/3 of the entire trial. So everyone in this chain benefits from using AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you share some success metrics or that demonstrate the effectiveness of your capability?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah,
absolutely. Please, please. Well, actually, I'm so excited. I was like, yeah, yeah, totally.
yeah. Go ahead.
Just some that come to mind. We just recently, tallied up. We did a early Alzheimer's study, preclinical Alzheimer's study. The projected screen failure rate from the sponsor was estimated to be 98%. We mined 3,000 potential candidates. We scheduled 305 within 3 weeks. So that completely saturated the site we were working with. Right? Can you imagine like just 300 people coming in within? It's the volumes they've never seen before. And so 300 people were scheduled, 305 to be precise. There was a very long observational period, about 23 weeks, until they could tally up everything and say, okay, this is how many were randomized. And when everything was said and done, turned out we brought in 60% of the patients. Okay, that's not bad. We increased their projected patient recruitment rate by 150%, and we lowered the estimated screen failure rate from 98% to 55. That
Mm.
is amazing. So now subsequently, we're running more early Alzheimer's studies. All right, fantastic. That's one use case. Next, a CKD study, mind 1,000. So when you start with when you look for high fidelity patients, you don't need the insane volumes from social media. Social media right now is just absolutely saturated. There are ads that are competing with each other, you're cannibalizing traffic, and the estimated useful volume for a study, something like 5%, because the studies are getting much more complex. And so you cannot ask people medical questions on social media. You just hope that whoever you bring in for a further screening turns out to be correct. But now that we have this ability to start with high fidelity leads from the get-go, we don't need as many. And so CKD study, we've identified 1,000. Within 10 days, 130 were scheduled. And again, the site capacity is completely saturated, so we'll put the brakes on that. And now we're waiting for them to process that, and that's not enough. We'll bring some more. Same idea, just a biotech just reached out to us and like, look, we are a little gentle, so if you get this study, um, we are waiting for the patients to come into the clinic, and when they do, kind of organically, we know that they exist. Like we can see that they exist,
Hmm.
right? But they come in organically into the clinic, and they come in at a rate maybe one a month, maybe one a week. That's not enough. Can we accelerate the process? Absolutely. You already know that patient load exists. Fantastic. You chose the sites. You did your work. Now let us do our work. Let us identify from those 3,000 who is actually a fit based on all the indications for this particular CKD study, run the outreach. And on top of that, well, let's say you're a patient in a rare disease or just generally, and you get a random call and someone asks you, would you like to participate in a clinical trial? What's the answer? The answer is going to be no, thank you. Right? People don't just decide randomly. I'd like to participate. There's got to be a impetus, and that could be. I'd like to make it a little extra for some. I'm a healthy volunteer. I just want to make a little extra. There's nothing wrong with that. For some, it's I'm an altruistic person. I'd like to move the science forward. All right, great. And for some, it is really the only chance to get healthcare, right? So healthcare is a trial option. Um, you got to use a different approach for all of these people. And so you got to run educational materials. You got to warm them up to the idea. You got to bring the awareness out. And so now we're working with patient experience companies like Juma Health, I think, is a very clear leader in that, where they design these materials to educate the communities, right? And they go out to communities and tell them, like, these trials exist. This is why you should sign up. Imagine a trial runs a placebo, and you're trying to recruit a person that is more or less managing their condition, and they have a risk of going into placebo. Why would they do that? Unless
Hmm.
you give them very compelling, resonating materials of why they should do that. And so we become this engine for delivering these materials, for educating the public, right? Because we can be absolutely relentless. We can deliver them as quickly as needed, infinitely scalable, as many times as needed. Tell me more about the study. Oh, here's an educational video. How much do I get paid? Oh, here's more information, and so on and so forth. Now, when we warm them up, this is where their decision peak is high, and it is absolutely critical that we also reach out in time, pre-screen them, but then we got to hold them by the hand, right? If I don't get a reminder that my haircut is coming, I'm guaranteed to miss it, right? And now we're talking about a clinical trial appointment that is much more serious. And so we do nurturing. Now that you're qualified, we know you're a qualified participant. We want to keep your engagement high. We want to continue delivering you materials. So by why it's important that you show up at the site, participate. Do not forget. Do not drop out. Do you need transportation? Do you need arrangements? Could you please confirm? Here's how to get there. This is where to park. This is where not to park. Do you need a Uber ride? Do you need a free bus ticket? And so on and so forth. It is absolutely critical because at the end of the day, all these people are volunteers, right? Whatever they do, they're doing just on a voluntary basis, and so it is just vitally important to keep them engaged, so they actually participate in the study.
Yeah. As I think about some of the things that you said there, I mean, y- so obviously the only way really to get, do they have an altruistic approach? Do they need healthcare? Are they just interested primarily because they feel kind of stuck, maybe they with their current treatment option? The only way that I could think of to get that is really to draw it from the person and let them self categorize in some way. So when I think about what you said as well with regards to, like, social media, so that, I mean, this kind of speaks to the level of, like, social media ads and things like that, and using that for recruitment. Whenever you think about the ways that they're categorizing, you mentioned it, but I just would like to hear a little bit more. How does that happen then today? How is it that you're able to sort of sort the people and understand what's most important to them before you move to that next step?
Yeah, so social media traffic, you probably can't. I mean, there's certainly a number of factors. Meta is very good at keeping a number of factors about
Sure.
you, right? They know quite a lot, and so the advertising companies certainly use that to target. Oh, let's target all males age, I don't know, 40 to 55. That kind of characterization is very precise, all within no more than 10 miles of a center, and so on and so forth. Sure, but when they click on an ad, you really don't know who you're talking to, and because the social media users' attention span is so short these days, and it's just a fact, right? We're all doom scrolling, we're all bombarded by notifications coming constantly. If you don't call these people, and there's studies that confirm this, if you don't engage them within the 5 minutes of them submitting the
Right.
informational form, they're as good as gone. So imagine they submitted something like at late at night or on the weekend, or just CRCs are busy and they ran out of time and they're going to reach the next day. You could call these people the next day and be like, "Who are you? Why are you calling me?" Like, I've never signed up for anything. I literally have your form with your details here, and now you send. And this, so now we connect to directly to the advertising account, and the second that the form is filled, we start the outreach. And if it's too early or too late, we'll do text. If it's normal business hours, we'll kind of fire off text and call and see what raises their interest more, offer them web experience. But when we know a little bit more about you, this is when we can engage in a meaningful conversation. Like, LLMs are good at conversations. What drives you to participate? We are reaching out from Dr. Jones' office of so and so. Would like to know. And of course, we do a warm up campaign. So we do branded calls. So you know, oh, it's not a spam call calling me. I don't want to pick up, right? We want to be a known entity to you. All of that allows us to tailor the approach going through.
Mm. Yeah. So it's just so important, but it speaks to the evolution I think that all of us are going through, especially with technology right now. Which brings me to my next question. So, how do you see the role of AI evolving clinical trials over the next 5 or 10 years?
I think a lot of the data that is currently opaque or just too large to process will become available, will be dissected at the practically at a moment's notice under your fingertips. And we already see that today. Feasibility, right? You can visualize, you can collect all this data and now pick and choose which sites do I want. Understand all the signals about how the sites recruited in the past, where the patient's load could be coming from. So you start again, zeroing in on the areas that have the patients you're looking for, that have the potential. Then again, you process, you aggregate this data even further with EMR mining. Then you perform the outreach, and you look. Not that we've accumulated, we've processed over 60,000 patients by now in a year and a half, right? We can now start doing behavioral analysis. Why did John Doe engage on study A but not on study B? Is there a common characteristic? Why did we do so well and blew the lead on this particular study? And why was the response so low on this one? Is there anything common? Something that you don't see from a medical chart. It's really just behavioral science, which is what Facebook did. Like they cracked the code, like, which is why it became so addictive. But you can do that again for the purpose of identifying an ideal approach, ideal profile of who you're looking for. I think this is where it's going. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not in your space. I certainly don't understand all of the ins and outs, but I know enough about AI to be excited about several different things in this space. And so here's my one sort of thought with regards to this particular topic, having seen this with social media accounts and seeing it with the way that we're shaping messaging and things like that right now in the digital marketing space. So you kind of think about tools that think for themselves, like MCPs with model context protocols. You also think about some of the things that where I can take all the information that I know about Paul Neyman and put it in one particular space and say, hey, look, I want a model just for you. I want a model to think like you and write like you and make sure that I model you to the to the nth degree so that you have kind of a, if you will, almost like a secondary version of you out there writing social media all the time. And so I kind of think about this space and the idea that, hey, look, I'm investigating a drug, and I know that at some point I have to go do clinical trials. The way that I write that I'm going to execute my clinical trial is important well in advance of you guys getting involved, well in advance of anybody really thinking about how that trial is going to be structured. So you think about the fact that you can have a tool that thinks about all the past clinical trials, what was successful, what worked in terms of patient recruitment, what are the minor adjustments, because I'm not talking about vast adjustments where you say, hey, look, I instead of studying this age population, I'm all of a sudden gonna broaden it or whatever. I'm saying that, what if you could have an AI that just thinks about your clinical trial at the moment that you need to think about it, and then whenever it's time, you just click, a couple buttons, and then it moves forward to that next step of engaging you guys and says, hey, look, I need you to help me get these people, that I targeted, 3 months ago or 6 months ago, or who knows. But
Yep. You're
that's just
absolutely right.
my thought in this, and excitement about where we're going. So.
Absolutely. We see the evidence of that already. We're working with Duke University DCI right now on a very interesting project where they want to put end-to-end automation into everything. So they start by creating the protocol with AI. Then the protocol gets over to us. We analyze the protocol and create the prescriptor based on the included exclusion criteria. Then we send this to IRB. The IRB looks at it with AI. All right, so nobody has time to say, okay, does the our AI say that yes, you are this is a valid prescriptor, you're approved? Great, we get the answer. If not, repeat the exercise, agentic conversation between the two systems. All right, we got the protocol back. We are approved from the IRB standpoint. Next step, we do the EMR mining. Next step, we do the outreach. Next step, we move these patients into CTMS or EDC or wherever you need. In the meantime, we provide this agentic support to the patients, something that we discussed. We provide support to the CRCs, like AI monitor. Imagine a situation where you're a CRC. You're supposed to do, I don't know, blood draw, and someone comes in the morning and says, "Oh, by the way, I just had a cigarette." I'm like, oh, what do I do now? So you got to open up the protocol and find the chapter 5.2.3 that says if this is what happened, then, but also just also reference chapter 17.27 or something like this. And a lot of times the CRC like, I don't know, I gotta call the CRO, the
Right.
CRO monitor. CRO monitor picks up and says, have you read the protocol? It's like, okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. And so, what if the CRC could call the agent or just type a question to the agent and say, okay, what do I do? Here's my protocol. You know everything about the study. What are my options? Like, ultimately, the decision still has to be made by a human, right? We don't want to relegate that to AI. But we can certainly help identify all the relevant portions and create a meaningful conclusion on the next steps. So all of that is super exciting. We see this just changing within months as we go through this process. A year and a half ago, when we started at the Vaccine Congress, we were really practically the only company walking around, and everyone was like, "What are you guys doing? Like, I've never heard about that. That's can you even do that?" And a year and a half later, there's every company here. We just finished SCRS, right? The one of the largest conferences for the sites. I think 90% of the companies were AI based, doing this or that, doing what we do, or doing complementary to what we do, or something else entirely. It's super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you envision the company going, or where do you hope that Ready Health will go in the next few years?
Would like to become this de facto engine. Really, we don't necessarily want to elbow out everyone in the space to create we're yet another platform where everyone has to log in and operate exclusively through us. Rather, become the engine that powers. Because if we make other people successful, then everyone benefits. Others have already established their certain practices, their processes. Why don't we plug in into that? To me, I think that is really the best option that we could create because AI is this fantastic motor, right? It's how you apply. And others already built the cars, and now we're coming in with this V12 from Ferrari. It's like, how about you plug in this, and let's see how this works out.
Yeah, also true. So, what's the greatest piece of leadership advice you ever received?
Oh, what's the greatest piece of leadership advice? I think treat your employees the best you can, right? They're really your resource. If you're a leader of the company, you know, I had a very tough sale, and wasn't going well. The implementation wasn't going well. The sale happened. The implementation wasn't going well, and people, my project manager was literally crying. At that point, the my CRO at that point picked up the phone, called the customer's PM, and this was a company associated with Bill Gates. Well, let's just leave it at that, right? And said, you know what? If I hear that this happens one more time, I'm going to shut down the project, and you're going to be explaining to Bill Gates with an approaching looming deadline why his people don't have access to what they need. The systems aren't up, they aren't operating, and I'll be happily walking away from this. Even though, yes, the business will be lost, there's no doubt about that. To me, that was probably one of the most valuable examples of leadership, um, maintaining company culture. And this is
Mm,
what we try to do in ours, and this is how we operate.
yeah. Well, it's definitely a great lesson for sure because none of us can know everything, and all of us know something. So, how do we now contribute to the overall collective and be successful, right? So, that's what I
Yeah,
take away from what you just said.
precisely.
Paul, what inspires you?
I see a lot of examples of people bootstrapping themselves, whether they perfect example. We just took a ride. At the end of a series, we went out to a restaurant because everything in the hotel, of course, was booked. We went out to a restaurant. On the way back, we called Uber. This guy pulls up, and the Uber is just absolutely, the car's going nuts. He's got disco lights going on. He's got disco glasses for us. He's got music, like a nice. He's got Queen, where the champions, or something like that going on, right? And we start talking. It's like a 15-minute ride. Like, where are you from? What do you do? I was like, look, I came from Venezuela. I'm trying to make a living here. I work three jobs. Like, I work three jobs. I work maybe about 80 hours a week. I'm trying to bring my family here. I needed $30,000 for the lawyers, and I finally made my last payment. But now I need to put 5,000 more to actually get the tickets to bring them in. And this guy is probably happier just doing this job than I ever been in my life. Like, I can't imagine. Like, these people could move mountains if you give them the right access, the tools, um, just incredible spirit, and incredible determination. And I can just look at these people and admire.
Yeah,
That's what they do. They make the best of where they are.
very inspiring indeed. What concerns you?
What concerns me? There's certainly AI concerns, right? As it gets adopted more and more, I certainly think there should be proper guardrails. I understand the industry conservatism. There's a lot of hype. There's a ton of hype where people will just append AI to anything, and then there's really nothing going there. It's like yet another summary that you somehow edit to your Salesforce form or something like that, right? Which makes our job a lot harder because it generates skepticism from the customers and lack of trust. But it's just that I think it's a normal cycle. It will go up, it will come down, it will stabilize. Just ride the waves. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it is one of the concerns though that I have with regards to our regulators is that the lack of understanding. I remember back in the internet days, right? So when the internet first came out, we started moving from dial-up modems over to, point to point connections back over to the internet. um, I just remember the description by Congress was that essentially the internet was a series of pipes. And sure, that's one way I guess to envision what it is, but in reality, um, they just need, I feel like it's almost like our regulators to be able to appropriately help us come up with the things that we should be worried about. Um, should be educated a little bit more, right? Like you're like, look, you're not allowed to write regulation 101 unless you've taken the 401 course for how to write regulations and or
Absolutely.
something.
Yes.
So
I'm
to me,
totally
that's
with you.
my one fear in the same space.
Right. No, I'm totally with you. Education is key. Like even our name, Areti, is the Greek word for education is goodness, right? If all men were more educated, there'll be less wars and evil in the world. So I consider us firm believers in that.
Also true. Thank you for sharing that. And last question, what excites you?
What excites me? I think the world as it becomes more connected, we're truly working towards a better future. Yes, there's certainly downturns, the economy, but overall, look at where we are as humanity compared to 100 years ago. I think the progress is accelerating tremendously. It's unstoppable. Um, I, as I grew up, I wanted to be an astronaut, right? I firmly believe that by this time now, we would be certainly on the moon. But I look at what SpaceX is doing, regardless of what Elon Musk is doing, but what SpaceX as a company is doing, what advances there are in health sciences. It is absolutely mind blowing, and it's only accelerating the pace. So I firmly believe that our kids will certainly live in a far better place as the world than we are. So that certainly excites me.
Yeah. I mean, certainly the future holds a lot to be positive about, and I completely agree with you on that. And on that note, Paul Neyman, thank you so much for coming on the Life Science Success Podcast and telling us about Areti Health and what it is that you're working on there. I'm excited for you guys and for hearing more about the company as you go forward.
Thank you for having me, Don. This was exciting.
Thanks a lot.